right, my friends, J.R. Dukes at your service. Appreciate everybody being here today. I just hit the buttons to make sure everything is working. So let me make sure everybody can hear me. Thanks for being here once again. Hello to everyone on YouTube. Looks like it's going through good on the X platform. And of course, our friends on Twitch. Thanks for everybody being here today. We've got a lot to talk about. Specifically, I want to talk about this Garcia case. Definitely have some specific comments, let's just let it go at that I want to make, and I want to make sure that we get the facts straight. I think there's just a lot of there's a lot of nonsense going on out there. Have you noticed? That's one thing I think that's great about our country is it's kind of like Burger King news is what I call it. Burger King news. And what I mean by that is in the United States of America, you can get your news your way. Whatever way you like to get your news, you can get your news any way you like it, and that's the way it is here in the United States. Literally, you turn to CNN, you get one set of facts on this Garcia case. You turn over to MSNBC, and they have a whole different set of facts. To me, it's extremely interesting, and I personally think it's a good thing. If you like your news with a particular slant or whatnot, hey, it's not a problem. You are welcome to do that. As we get started here, if you guys would like to join the conversation, if you'd like to call in a comment, if you would like to appear by video, you have that option with the link I just put in the comment right there in the comment section. And additionally, if you just like to make a comment, of course, you can just go ahead and put it in the comment bar. I try to read all the questions as I'm able to do so. So hello to everybody that's coming on in. American Nana, it's always a pleasure to have you in the chat. Thank you for being here. If you guys care to, go ahead and say hello as you come into the chat and let me know where you're from. Let me know anything about you you'd like me to know. Generally, we get people from all over the world, especially on the rebroadcast of all these live streams. Seems like we get a large group of people that generally tune in to see what we're talking about. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. I just want to give you all an example of some of the misinformation that's kind of going on out there in the news today. And on this program, a lot I talk about the free mind, right? And what does that exactly mean, having a free mind? Well, a free mind, the way I look at it, is just real simple. I want you to be able to think for yourself. Just that simple. I think being able to think is really the goal of education. Why do we go to school? It's not so much necessarily to learn facts. It's teaching you how to think. And that's exactly what I try to do with this program. You don't have to agree with me necessarily on the way that I see a particular subject. I think everybody that is a routine viewer of mine understands that. Sometimes we can just agree to disagree, but the exchange of information, the exchange of ideas, venting whatever our concerns, frustrations are, I think at the end helps us all to live a better life, a more prosperous life. And that's exactly what I try to do here on this program. So we're going to talk about this case. I will say this Garcia case, I have gotten such a wide variety of comments on this case. It's kind of interesting. I'm trying to think if I've had another subject that's been as divisive as this Garcia case has been. I have, let's just say, Democratic friends, some woke Democrats who had been contacting me saying, hey, fantastic, thanks for explaining this the way you explain it. They realize a lot of the people that view my program have rather conservative leaning views, and that's okay. It's I'd rather not be tied to one group or one party or the other. And then I have some other, let's just say, conservative friends that are not very happy with my views. So I'm hoping to shed some light on this tonight, and hopefully, again, we can all talk about it and decide for ourselves exactly what the facts are pertaining to this case. Now, on a quick another subject real quickly, I want to tell you, man, there is some great news going on in the Trump administration. He is doing such a great job. His first 100 days, I think they end in 3 or 4 days. That will be the first 100 days of the Trump administration. And overall, I give him a solid A to A+. I mean, he's really, really shaking things up. It is what I would call promises made, promises kept. And amen to that, right? It took them all of 10, 11, 12 days to secure the border. Of course, you remember the Biden administration swore up and down that unless Congress approved new laws, new funding, there was no way possible to secure the border. And of course, Donald Trump proved that that simply is a lie and was a lie. He has already secured the border. I believe the amount of crossings that have actually made it into this country, I mean, it's really at a trickle. It's just a handful of individuals, where you had the Biden administration. Some reports have it anywhere between, say, 10 to 12 million people that they have allowed in this country just in the 4 years of the Biden administration. And it might be even higher than that. So just very interesting. And hello to Teresa. Thank you for being here in the conversation today. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this first video. Oh, by the way, I did a video yesterday on Letitia James. Sweet Letitia James from New York City, the AG of New York. If y'all have not heard that video, please, after this broadcast is done, go ahead and switch over to my videos tab. Check that video out. There is some interesting developments going on in relation to Letitia James. Remember, she ran on a platform that she was going to get Trump. I'm going to take him down. I'm going to be a big pain in his you-know-what every single day. This woman went after his children, went after his money, his businesses, sued him every which way you could imagine, and sued him in large part because of different real estate transactions. And of course, as we've talked about on here, she is now facing criminal indictment pending. Let's hope they indict her quickly. She's facing a criminal indictment from the Department of Justice for similar crimes as she alleged against President Donald Trump. Just kind of interesting to me, and we'll see exactly how this all transpires and how this goes over time. Julianne, thank you for being here. And yes, made a big difference in that border wall, no doubt about it. She definitely had to manufacture to sue over him. There's no question about that. It was just a big scam. We have called it lawfare, and I think that's a good term for it. Generally speaking, I hate to see anyone indicted. I hate to see anyone in criminal jeopardy. I mean, it's just, being a good Christian, I guess you could say, it's just something you don't want to see someone else suffer through. But in this case, I feel it is very warranted, because unless and until the other side, so to speak, learns that, hey, if you engage in this type of behavior, you're going to pay the price for this type of behavior. Because when power shifts, when the administration shifts, you're going to face the same type of monster, so to speak, that you developed. I mean, I think it's just really that simple. And if I was Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, definitely Letitia James, probably even Alvin Bragg, some of these other individuals, I would not be sleeping very soundly at night. I would think that these are people that would have problems on their mind. And again, we'll see how it goes. The Trump administration is just about to complete 100 days in office. So you can imagine Attorney General Pam Bondi is all over it. So stay tuned. You can rest assured that I will be talking about it right here on this program. So, all right, now I want to go ahead and dive into this. Before I get into my opening comments, I want to just show you an illustration of some of the misinformation that's out there pertaining to this Garcia case. And I just want to point it out just so you guys can clearly understand what my concerns are and where I want to steer this conversation. And by the way, you guys know I love Benny. Benny is a rock star. There's no question about it. It's got a great program. But he put this piece on X, and let me make sure I quote it clearly before we look at the video. He says right here, he says, Maryland Sheriff Jeffrey Gawler, I guess is his name, confirms Kilmar Abrego Garcia is 1,000% an MS terrorist, slams Democrats for protecting him. All right, so let's just take a look at this and let's see if Benny is right. Is this what the sheriff said, or did he say something else? All right, because if you notice my caption right here, I quoted the words from what I read. Let's take a quick peek at it together, and hopefully you'll understand my concerns here on this here.
Sheriff, I want to thank you for being on the program. There's been a lot of conversation about Kilmar drinking margaritas with your senator down in El Salvador. Your senator says that he's just a great guy, but wouldn't answer whether he's an MS-13 gang member this past weekend when he was doing interviews on this subject matter. Could you please present for us the evidence that this man is an MS-13 gang member?
Well, I've read the reports, and absolutely, this is, and thanks for having me on. This is such a horrific story from the sense that this is the jurisdiction, if your listeners and the viewers aren't aware, this is where Rachel Morin's horrific murder and rape took place in my jurisdiction. My agency investigated that crime. And the Kayla Hamilton case from the year before, where she was killed at the hands of an MS-13 member illegally in the country. And these are the types of individuals that our state senator does not reach out to those families, and yet travels to El Salvador to visit with an affiliate. If not a full-fledged gang member, certainly an affiliate. There's plenty of information out there to demonstrate that through the tattoos, through the clothing, through the admissions, through different reports that are out in the public that I have read. He is certainly.
Did you hear that? I'm going to rewind it just a digit, make sure I drive the point home as to what he said pertaining to this 1,000% MS-13 member, allegedly this Garcia guy.
Tied that I have read, reports that are out in the public that I have read.
I don't think that sounds like 1,000%, but that is just my take on it. Reasonable people can agree and basically can agree to disagree. And I want to be really clear about this as I get into my opening comments. So bear with me one second, because I have talked with many people that have a lot of concern about this, and that's okay. I mean, concern is normal, and having a different opinion is okay. But I want everybody, again, to be aware of the facts. And I want to be really clear at the inception about one thing. I am not for Mr. Garcia. If I look at the so-called evidence and I assume guilt by association, this type of thing, there's a good chance he belongs to MS-13. I don't deny that. That is probably the case. This, to me, ladies and gentlemen, is about the rule of law. If you want to make America great again, you have to start with rebuilding confidence in the Constitution, in our legal system, to make sure that the rule of law is followed every single day. And that is also applicable to people that are residents, people that are citizens, and vice versa. And that's what our Constitution says. Our Constitution clearly states that it applies to all persons, all residents. It does not specify it applies to just citizens. And the reason this is important there's a lot of reasons it's important. I don't care if it's President Trump or President Biden or any president. We can never have a king. We have to have somebody that follows the rule of law. And I love Donald Trump so much, but the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that we're all human beings. And you know the old expression, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's where my thinking goes in relation to a subject like this. And I guarantee to tell you two things right now that you have not heard anywhere else that is a real concern of mine pertaining to this case. And as a side note, we're going to look at a video here in a minute. It looks like there's some movement on this case. I have my suspicions that the Trump administration is going to reverse course in relation to this case, because they simply don't want this confrontation, if you will, with the judicial system. At least that's where I think this is going, because right now everything is kind of on a pause. They're trying to take the heat down. All right. The two things I want to make sure I really drill into, and then I'll go into my little script, something that just popped into my mind. Number one, if Donald Trump continues on this road, I can guarantee you that if next year the House of Representatives flips to the Democratic side, what do you think is going to happen? This will be Article 1 of Articles of Impeachment against President Donald Trump, because he is going to be accused of failing to fully comply with an order, a legal order of the court, to facilitate the return of Mr. Garcia. It's really just that simple. And folks, remember this. I love Donald Trump. I love President Trump. I think he's doing a great job. But he himself has been talking about sending American citizens to these foreign prisons. That is outrageous. That is insanity. And frankly, it's unconstitutional for a whole list of reasons that I'm not going to go into in this video, but rest assured, it's completely, absolutely illegal. Thank God it is. And if you're curious why, it has to do with habeas corpus and being able to make motions pertaining to habeas corpus. You don't have those type of rights in foreign countries or foreign jails. It's really just that simple. So potentially this could be an article of impeachment. You guarantee you they're going to get him for something. And This, in my opinion, just makes it more easy for them to go after him. The second thing I want to mention, and I wrote about this in my little script right here, but I want to make sure I just talk about it just out right here. And that is, remember this, when he was arrested, this guy is supposed to be a high-ranking member of MS-13, right? Yet, he has no criminal record here in the United States. He has no criminal record in El Salvador. Now, there is some association questions. I get that. But think of this. When they arrested him at home with his children there, did you see anything in the police report or anything reported in the news saying that this top-ranking member of MS-13, this alleged member of MS-13, who's supposed to be a captain or whatever his rank is, he was arrested with firearms? He was arrested with a handgun? He had an AR-15? He had something there? Did you hear about any drugs that he was arrested with? Did you hear about any type of illegal contraband that he had on him? The answer is a screaming no. Does it not stretch credulity in your mind that a person that is supposed to be a high-ranking MS-13 member, not just a flunky that joined the gang the other day, this guy's supposed to be a captain or a capita or whatever the name is for the guy, and boom, he doesn't have anything in his house that they also cited him for or said was a problem. To me, that stretches credulity. And I can assure you that the government agencies that went out there to arrest him checked his entire residence. I would imagine they probably tore it from top to bottom, trying to see what type of evidence was in that house pertaining to Mr. Garcia. If you agree, disagree, put it in the comments, and I will get to them in just a second. So let me go ahead and get into a few prepared statements, and then I'll go into your questions, and we'll move along right here, okay? All right, here I go. Let me start where I stand. I have always, and I continue to support President Donald J. Trump. I support the American First Movement. I support restoring law and order to this great country of ours. I have defended this man, Donald Trump, through all kinds of censorship, witch hunts, lawfare, deep state sabotage. But I have to be clear, supporting someone doesn't mean that we blindly defend every move made by this individual and or their administration. That's not loyalty, my friends. That's adultery. Idoltry, IDOL. I support Trump because I believe in the Constitution of the United States, not in spite of the Constitution. And when it comes to the case of this Kilmar Garcia, folks, I've dug into it. I've read these court rulings. I've read the Supreme Court ruling. I've read the Court of Appeals when it went up to the Court of Appeals, the initial 7-2 decision that was originally handed down by the U.S. Supreme Court, the 9-0 decision that was the final ruling up to date on this particular case. I've listened to all the spin. I flipped through CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Newsmax, what's the other one, News Nation. I've listened to many sides. I've also read comments. I've had phone calls. Frankly, I've had prayer with individuals pertaining to this particular case right here. I've listened to all the spin is probably the best way to say it. And it's disturbing. If he is a criminal, though, I want you to remember this. This is a man that came to this country when he was 16 years old. So if he's a criminal because he's in this country as a minor at 16 years old, then, my friends, I submit to you that all of the dreamers in this country that you hear a lot about in the news, they are criminals also, every single one of them. And I don't think that the vast majority of Americans would agree with that statement. And, of course, nor do I. This man had no criminal record in the U.S. nor in El Salvador. He came to this country as a kid, 16-year-old, fleeing gangs that were trying to force him to join or die. A federal immigration judge looked at this case in 2019 and ruled that he could not be deported to El Salvador. He could be deported elsewhere, but the federal judge says he cannot be deported to El Salvador because there was a high likelihood he'd be persecuted or killed. That is the same judge that twice ordered him held in custody while he went through this immigration proceeding. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind. This was legal protection. This was a court order, and yet ICE showed up at home at this Maryland man that has a lot of people very aggravated by that phrase. I get it. We shouldn't let phrases aggravate us. They raided his home with no new charges, no weapons, no drugs, no court summons, no new hearing. They just took him. This is what banana republics do, my friends. This is something maybe you would see in Russia. And now we're being told that this is some kind of MS-13 boss. Really? Then why wasn't he charged as such? Why wasn't he armed? Why didn't they find so much as a pocket knife or a bag of weed in this guy's home? If this guy was a high-ranking gang member, and that was a quote out of the documents, you would think would have seen him with photos of guns, drugs, cash in his phone, at his residence somewhere, right? I mean, all these gang members that we see have some type of something hanging up on their wall or inside their phone or whatever, but they found nothing. At least there's nothing listed on the documents, these multiple court documents that I have poured through. And yet they deported him anyways in direct violation of a standing legal court order. They use this so-called Alien Enemies Act. I had a friend of mine contact me about this. Oh, it was legal because it's the Alien Enemies Act. Trump is doing what he's supposed to be doing because it's legal. It's the law. Well, remember, this is a 1700s era wartime law designated for actual enemy combatants during a declared war. To justify skipping the courts and booting him out of the country. And the worst part, they didn't send him just anywhere. They sent him right back to El Salvador, to that prison that they call CESOT, C-E-S-O-T. The El Salvadoran Supermax, built for violent gang members, whether a single charge or a conviction for any particular individual. This guy did not have one single anything on his record, but he's now in a Supermax prison. I realize that published reports have it that they have moved him, but that's where they sent him, at least originally. And you have to remember, he is still in custody on this program. There's a video, I forgot how long ago I made it, but we did go over and I showed you the inside of the Supermax prison. So if you're interested, be sure to check it out. There's a lot of videos online, frankly, pertaining to this prison and the horrendous conditions in this prison. Frankly, ladies and gentlemen, this prison violates, in my estimation, the Geneva Conventions. It violates just basic human rights. Again, another subject for another day. And now here this guy is being hauled off, shackled, hooded, and paraded around in state propaganda photos. Let me be clear. This is not me defending Garcia. I am not defending Garcia. I'm not advocating for open borders or lawlessness. You guys know me better than that. I'm Mr. Constitution, Mr. Law, Mr. Everybody needs to live in freedom with free speech rights, etc., etc. I'm not saying illegal immigration is not a problem. It is a serious problem. My heart bleeds and aches for all these families that have lost family members because of some act of these illegals that are in this country, and they should not be here. What I am defending, however, is due process. I'm defending the Constitution. I'm defending the idea that the government power should always have limits, even when we agree with the people that are holding the power, such as President Trump. Because if we say it's okay to violate court orders when it's convenient, if we say it's okay to skip hearings and fast track someone out of the country without evidence, then what we're saying is that might makes right. And that's not true in America, and that's not what we believe in. This is exactly, on a high level, exactly what the Biden administration did to Donald Trump and did to a lot of Americans, frankly. Now, if Joe Biden was still in office and did this, we would call it tyranny. Right? Everybody get that? This is something that a rogue government does. We would normally think that, hey, this only happens in the banana republics, the countries that are lawless. Some country in the middle of Africa, right? Just something that we don't see here in America, and we shouldn't see in America. We're supposed to believe in a side that believes in law and order. So we need to be consistent. We need to fix this simply. Bring this man back. Don't set him free. Leave him in custody, which is what I think is going to happen anyways. Leave him in custody in a detention facility, give him his due process rights, and then deport him to another country. No court has said he could not be deported to another country, right? Because you don't make America great again by abandoning the Constitution. You make America right again by defending it, no matter what. And that's my opening dialogue. So let's see what comments we got. I'm sure that has generated some feedback. If you agree, disagree, I'd like to hear from you, and we can talk about it. All right, let's see what Julianne said. El Salvador said there were charges on this guy over there. If that's true, Julianne, I have not seen those documents. You are more than welcome to send them to my email address. That's floating across the screen above below. Just simply reach jrdukes@gmail.com, or you can go ahead and text them to my phone number, the link, whatever. I'd be happy to check into that, but I have seen absolutely no charges against this guy. As a matter of fact, the sworn testimony, if you will, I mean, these are in documents that if the information is false, someone is in deep trouble on it. Because if you look at the U.S. Supreme Court rulings and the other court rulings, they all state that I have read that this guy has no record whatsoever. So thank you for your comment, Julian. Raskin already made his threats against the GOP. All right, American Ant JR, I thought sending Americans to a foreign country was nuts. Yeah, I agree with you, American Ant. I don't agree with that. And listen, I get it. Donald Trump is trying to correct this egregious conduct by the Biden administration by letting all these illegal people in our country unvetted. We need immigration, but we need legal immigration. We've talked about on this program how we are in the midst of a serious population decline all over the world, with the exception of parts of Africa. I don't want to get off on this tangent too deep, but this is one of the reasons why Russia is really striking out against Ukraine. That's the reason they've taken so many children from Ukraine and pulled them across the border. They have a serious population crisis in Russia. They are worried that in the future, Russia may not even have the 1.1 million soldiers that is required just to repel their own borders in Russia. Japan is in a very serious situation similar to that. They also think that this might be one of the reasons that we may have a pending war going on with China, because China is adamant about taking back Taiwan. In their mind, it's part of the China empire and they want to take it back. And it's kind of like this. If they don't do it now, they may not be able to do it anytime in the next 50 to 100 years. And why? Because they simply don't have the manpower to do it. Their population is expected, I believe, another 40 years, 50 years, it's expected to be less than what we have in the United States today. Can you imagine that? A country of approximately 4 billion people down to the size of what the United States is today, which is roughly about 360 million, 65 million, something like that. And of course, that is a result of the one-child policy that China had for so many years. They were worried about not having enough food to feed their people, and this is just the kind of thing that goes on. Julianne says, still defending a wife. No, again, Julianne, hear me clearly. I am not defending this Garcia guy. This guy is probably, let's just say, I wouldn't want him to be my neighbor. I wouldn't want him to be my friend. He's probably a bad hombre. I grant you that, period. I mean, really, it is very telling what his wife wrote about him in the papers. But Julianne, I want to tell you something here. Just because it's written down, remember, he was not convicted of anything. This is just what she wrote down. I myself had the displeasure of having one ex-wife take out a similar document on me. The allegations were nothing physical, and I don't want to get into it, but what I will tell you, it is so unconstitutional. It makes my blood boil when I think about it. I did show up for my hearing, and it was dismissed as there was no foundation for it whatsoever. And when I think about it, really just taps my you-know-what, because when that happens, you lose your gun rights, you lose a lot of rights immediately. Mine have, of course, been fully restored. I have no convictions of any sort on my record, but the problem is, and this was a recent case that was before the Supreme Court, not my case, but just the general scope of these protection orders. The only dissenting justice, who I think got it right, was Clarence Thomas. He said that the other 8 members were just wrong. on the law, because the problem is you lose your civil rights, your constitutional rights, just when someone goes forward to the court and they say, hey, this guy did this to me. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's the way it is in our society. And it's wrong, ladies and gentlemen. It should not be allowed. In our country, according to the Constitution, we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Why do they approve these orders? I could tell you why. Because in our society, nobody wants to be wrong. Think about it from the judge's perspective. If the judge has a document saying, hey, I need protection, and the judge says no, let's just pretend it's your standard man and woman type of thing, right? Well, what happens? What's going to happen to that judge if that woman goes about her life and God forbid she's killed by the person she was trying to get a protection order against? No judge wants that to happen. People want to do the right thing. They don't want to make the wrong call. So that's effectively how that works. So what I'm going to respond, Julianne, by saying that, listen, the allegations as written in that document are terrible, terrible. This guy's probably a very bad hombre, like I just told you. But there was no conviction as a result of it. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate she is apparently going back to a man that would do the things that she put in that document. But again, we have to follow law pursuant to actual convictions, pursuant to things that you've actually been proven to have done in a court of law. And having said that, Julianne, you have a very valid point. I will submit that. Oftentimes, ladies and gentlemen, what happens when it comes to the law, and this is the way it always is. I had an attorney friend of mine explain this to me many years ago, and I think I may have mentioned it once or twice. When it comes to the law, you always have what I would call a tire hitting the road, like your car tire spinning on the road. You have the road pushing against the tire. So it's a metaphor. The road is one right that you might have, and the tire is another right, and they're pushing against each other. And then it's up to the Supreme Court ultimately to make a decision as to which one is going to prevail, which right is going to push harder against the other right, so to speak. So that's what we're always faced with when it comes to these different rights that we have under the Constitution. And I just want to say we need to be very careful before we allow any government, anybody in our government, to take our rights away, which they've been doing over the past 60 to 70 years very, very slowly. Julian says he beat the you-know-what out of his wife. Yeah, I agree. I just think I'm not defending that type of behavior, period. I'm defending the Constitution. I'm defending the due process rights. I'm out. You're defending a monster. Well, Julianne, you have to make your own choices on that. I don't know if you heard what I said or not, but it's not a matter of being out. It's a matter of these are the facts. Not defending this guy. I'm defending the guy's right to have due process. And you should want it like that too, like I just explained. But I get it. Some people get upset about it and can't handle it. This program is too much for you. You don't have to listen to this episode. It's not a problem. Again, I encourage everybody to have the free mind that I'm talking about. And what that means is you're open to hearing all sides, hearing everything. I'm hoping that my program brings you something different that you might not have heard somewhere else. But please don't ever say I'm defending a monster. That's just false, and it's not correct. American Nana, I don't know what's wrong with these politicians standing up for a wife beater. Again, I get it, American Nana. You're correct. I would just tell you that it's not about defending a monster. It's not about defending a wife beater. It's about defending every individual under the law. Everybody has the right to be. Think of it this way. What if it was your son or your daughter that one day was just dragged off, and the next day, within the next 2 or 3 days, they woke up in Seacock over in El Salvador, and you're an American citizen? How would you feel? These people are not even being afforded the opportunity to tell a judge, I'm a U.S. citizen, and I'd like the opportunity to prove it. Our Constitution guarantees our right of due process, even if you're here illegally. The Constitution, again, does not say that you have to be a citizen to have these rights. It says any person in our country is afforded these constitutional rights. Now, as a citizen, we definitely have more rights. We have the right to vote, for example. There's 2 or 3 rights that I can think off the top of my head that we have as a citizen that someone else that's just a resident here, illegal or otherwise, does not have. So I just want to make sure I'm clear about that. American Anna, I believe you're being fair and well. Thank you, American Anna. I appreciate it. And listen, this is a subject that I've you could tell by Julianne's comment earlier, that people get boiled, people get very, very emotional, but I'm not about taking something that is hard to talk about or gets the blood boiling and just turn away for it or mold my opinion differently because I don't want to make somebody mad. If someone gets mad, I don't know what to say. You have the opportunity to go ahead and click on that link, and I'll give you some airtime, and you can go ahead and say how you view it. I don't have a problem with that. You don't have to agree with my view. I just want to give you the facts, and then you make your own view about it. Again, I think President Trump is going to do this anyways. Bring the guy back, leave him incarcerated, and then prosecute him federally for the allegations his wife made, for any other crimes he might have committed. Go ahead and prosecute him accordingly. It's really just that simple. And I know for a fact the Trump administration would have a relatively easy time deporting him to another country. Just do it. Deport him. It's really just that simple. That's my take on it. And again, I realize this brings out a lot of emotions in people, and your emotions and your thoughts and your aggravation about that is sound. But in this particular case, like I've told you, I've had the unpleasantness of being on the receiving end of some garbage like that. Now, again, my allegations were nothing about beating somebody or anything along them lines. But what I will tell you, there's a reason our founding fathers put it in the Constitution that we have a right to due process. It's kind of like I had a conversation with someone a long time ago talking about some of these rape laws that we have on the books. And of course, nobody wants to advocate for any type of violence against women. I mean, that's just a common sense. And they were like, hey, we need to pass this law. We need to pass this law. And you know what? They ended up having a son of their own. And they had a son that turned out one day to be a teenager. And we were discussing these type of topics. And their point was, it's amazing how your opinion on a particular subject changes with experience, with life experience, because if you're not careful, you only see it from one side. You have to follow whatever the rules are, whatever the law is that we all come up with. And a lot of times life experience will change the way we think right now. And that's all I'm saying. And I want to close my remarks on this particular subject just one more time. I'm not defending this Garcia guy. This guy is probably just as bad as we think he is. There's a good chance he is an MS-13 gang member. That's not the point. The point is that no president of the United States should be able to come in my house and yank my backside out of here and have me within 72 hours in a maximum security prison in El Salvador unless and until I receive my due process rights. And even then, you can't send me to a foreign country jail. Donald Trump has stated he wants to look into that. And if it is determined to be legal, he wants to advocate for that. It's just that simple. And again, I don't want to keep beating the same horse to death on it. There's a reason this subject is touching off so many nerves, and it's causing such an interesting discussion with different individuals. And the reason they keep replaying this is because the Democrats realize that this is a subject that has a little bit of pay dirt. If I was a Democratic operative, I would kind of change my tone. I don't know that I would necessarily be meeting with Garcia. I surely would not be going to El Salvador, that I guarantee you, I'd be focused solely on the due process consideration and just let it go like that. I think that is, I think that's the easiest way to say it. And one other comment I want to make about the law, this law from the 1700s. Look, the law is law. If there's a law saying the president can do it, the president can do it. But remember this too. Just because there is an Alien Enemies Act from 1797, whatever, I don't really care if it's from yesterday. But the point I want to leave you with is just because there's a law in the books, it does not mean it's constitutional. And it's highly possible that a law could be determined to be constitutional in the year 1800, 1810, 1820, whatever. It could be constitutional. But in the year 2025, it can be looked at as completely unconstitutional. And a quick example for that I can go ahead and give everyone is look at the Brown versus the Board of Education. Before that decision from the Supreme Court ruled earlier in another landmark case that basically white people and black people could be separated as long as the accommodations were what they call equal. And of course, after Brown versus the Board of Education, they decided that was a bunch of nonsense, which of course it is. And in the year 2025, we can't possibly phantom that type of law being allowed to pass or being accepted as part of mainstream law. And but again, it went back, what was that, the 1950s, 1960s on the Brown decision? Well, then it was considered constitutional. Today, no way would it ever be considered constitutional. And so what I submit, ladies and gentlemen, is that for a list of reasons, this so-called Alien Enemies Act is not constitutional, mainly because of the due process rights that it does not afford residents of our great country. It's really just that simple in my estimation on that. Remember, you're looking at a man right here that's MAGA all the way. I support Donald Trump almost 100%. But like his first administration, sometimes the man can lose his way if he's not careful. I heard Donald Trump with my own ears say that, hey, I want to look into sending American citizens to El Salvador. Friends, that's not okay with me, period. Just that simple, full stop. I'm not okay with any American being sent to a maximum security prison in another country, period. And I am MAGA all the way. So just want to make sure I set the record very straight in regards to that. So hopefully right now, I think the Republicans are in a good position going forward into next year, into the election that will happen next year for the House of Representatives specifically. But I want to make sure Donald Trump, our dear president, does not lose his way, that he stays focused. And listen, I don't know that he'll be listening to my video per se, but I really hope that he takes to heart what I'm saying in this video and that he makes a slight adjustment in relation to this Garcia case. And I hate to be so cynical, but think about this. Is it possible, just possible, that another reason he's stretching this particular case out is, have you noticed people are not talking about tariffs as much? They're talking about this case instead of tariffs. I'm not saying that's the reason for it, but I'm pretty cynical when it comes to anybody. I don't care about their political party. I don't care about their beliefs one way or the other. I am always thinking one way or the other, why would someone do this? And we'll see how this turns out. But the fact that you have the courts already pausing their own orders tells me that the administration, in all likelihood, is looking for an off-ramp in relation to this particular subject right here. So, American Anna, I appreciate your comment on that. And American Anna says the Birthright Amendment, which was drafted for former slaves, is now being used to claim citizenship. So I get you on the point of laws being outdated, so to speak. Yeah, it just, American Anna, I think you're hitting on it exactly right. Just over time, what we would look at as constitutional changes. And I think that's one of the genius about our U.S. Constitution, is that our founding fathers literally made it metaphorically, of course, a living, breathing document, if you would. It's not easy to do, but it can be amended through amendments to the Constitution as the times demand that it has to change accordingly. Yet, it's not so easy to change to where basically anybody in power can change on a whim the actual Constitution. So, it's just really the genius of the founding fathers. Clearly, they had a blessing from God above that was with them, and we have the wonderful country that we're living in today. So, all right, I think you guys are right on as far as that's concerned. Let's go ahead and take a look at this one video here that is talking about what I've been hinting about as far as the pause, let's call it a pause, that is currently going on right now with this case. And we'll wait and see over the weekend exactly what happens or what transpires in this case. But let's take a quick listen to this and then we'll discuss it.
Welcome back. A federal judge has temporarily halted her own order requiring the Trump administration to provide updates on efforts to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia back to the U.S. The Maryland man was mistakenly deported to El Salvador's mega prison last month, you'll remember. And in a heated town hall yesterday in Iowa, some people criticized Senator Chuck Grassley and the Trump administration for how the case is being handled. Listen.
We have a due process, and it was not followed. And the Supreme Court ruled that he needed to come back. Okay. So Trump said, nope, I'm not going to do that. So why do we even have a Supreme Court if they're not going to follow the ruling of the...
For more on all of this, I'm joined by CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman.
Just as a quick side note, by the way, you hear people on the talking heads on TV, they're saying, oh, you know what, we have a constitutional crisis. Well, that's wrong. We don't have a constitutional crisis. We might have what I would call a constitutional conflict, because, there's a question as to whether or not President Trump is going to follow the court's order and do basically what they want him to do or what they have ordered him to do. We'll have to see exactly if that pans out. Now, if it comes down to where, for example, the U.S. Supreme Court says, Mr. President Trump, I'm telling you, do what you got to do, get that guy back here, and the president says, I'm not going to do it, well, then that's a crisis. But at this point, don't buy into the hyperbole here. We don't have a crisis, maybe a little bit of a conflict, but that's not that unusual.
Hoffman, here with me again in Studio 57. Katrina, good morning to you. So what more do we know about why the judge in Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case has now paused her own order?
Yeah, good morning, Errol. We don't know why she paused the order. There was no information that was revealed. She just gave a 7-day stay. But this came after a scathing order from this judge, Errol, where she had essentially told the government that she thought they were willfully not complying with her order to turn over discovery. Both parties did agree to this stay, so it may be an indication that there is some movement going on behind the scenes, that they feel that the Trump administration is starting to make efforts to bring Mr. Abrego Garcia back. I mean, we really can't speculate. But for now, they'll have until April 30th at 5 p.m. for the stay.
Okay, I know we'll keep watching that. In a different case.
Well, she says she can't speculate, but I can speculate. It's like I was saying a minute ago. I'm of the firm opinion that that Donald Trump and his administration is going to simply reverse course on this on some level, some way. It may not be a complete about face, but they're going to do something different on this case here. All right, P. Hacker, a Hecky man. If I was President Trump, I would not give those liberal judges. They went, I get you on that. I don't necessarily differ with you on that. I just think that most people would be okay with President Trump if he said, look, I made a mistake. And by the way, they've already admitted they made a mistake. They acknowledged they should not have deported Garcia to El Salvador. I think if President Trump, his administration officials, whatever, say, listen, we're going to follow the Supreme Court. We're going to do what they ask. They want us to facilitate the return. We're going to do that. But we're going to go ahead and deport him somewhere else and give him his due process rights. I think people would be okay with that. They would accept that. I don't think that that's a big mark on President Trump or something that embarrasses him or his administration. But I think your point's on the spot there. You go on to say Kilmar, human smuggling, wife beaver, a member of Miss 13. What else is needed? I got you. I got you on that. But I don't know if you were listening to the comments and stuff I've been making during the course of this live stream. No doubt would I not want to live next door to Garcia. I would not want to be his friend. I definitely would not want to be his wife. This guy is probably a very, very bad hombre. I've been saying that the entire live stream. There's just no doubt about it. I do not buy this guy being this dad of the year that he's being painted. But that's not how our system of justice works. That's the whole premise of what I have been talking about for a whole list of reasons. The Trump administration needs to find an off-ramp on this and go in a different direction. My cynical side of my brain tells me, hey, listen, it stops these liberal woke Dems from talking about these tariffs all the time and basically scaring the bejesus out of every single American. I get that. You know, it's a new piece of news, and people are now talking about this instead of talking about the tariffs, at least as much as they were talking about it before. So I'm not sure what President Trump is thinking about. Generally speaking, this man's very smart. I mean, he's, I don't want to call him a genius, but this guy definitely has the Lord's blessing on him in my mind. I just think, like anybody else, he could lose his way if he's not careful. And again, just like the story we just heard, I think there is a new page coming on this right here. American Anna says, I'd be in jail if this man were. Yeah, I could get you on that. I would not allow anybody to be beating on me either. So amen to that. But just remember, as we've been talking about in this whole thing, these are all allegations against him. I'm a grown man. We're all adults here. We kind of have an idea of what kind of person this Garcia is. I'm all about making sure we stick to the Constitution of the United States. Remember, with the Biden administration and what they did to President Trump, I was on my live streams here and on my videos talking about how unconstitutional this is. The founding fathers never meant for the weaponization of our judicial system against a president of the United States or a candidate of the United States. It was never meant for what Fannie Willis, Nathan Wade, Alvin Bragg, Jack Smith, Joe Biden, their entire administration did to President Donald Trump. It was just not designed to do that. These people, in my mind, engaged in high-level corruption. And listen, on some level, I cannot forgive in a just say in a secular sense what Joe Biden has done to the Constitution of the United States. I forgive him as a man because that's what Christ wants us to do, right? I'm not losing any sleep over it, but let me be clear. What he did to our Constitution, what he did to our country is something that I hope is well reflected in the history books pertaining to his tenure in the office and the this lawfare, this unconstitutional conduct is something that I hope is remembered for the rest of American history, if not world history. And I'm hoping that we never engage in this type of behavior again. This is the kind of behavior that the Biden administration participated in that literally could bring our great nation to a conclusion that we just don't want to happen. I mean, it could literally destroy a country. I believe in part that's what destroyed Rome. The great Roman Empire was this corruption, this not following the rule of law, just having, when you have this type of corruption like we see with the court systems in New York and just the other day, it was the governor of New York caught on a hot mic saying, hey, I control the judges here. I can go back after Donald Trump or whatever I want. I mean, it's very scary. And to my knowledge, it's never been a problem in American history, this type of corruption, this level of lawfare. And it just is something we need to make sure we never forget. And I hope that it is never forgotten in history. So I don't like it if it's Joe Biden engaging in that type of behavior. And I definitely am not happy about this one little thing that the Trump administration is doing. Mr. President, I hope somehow, some way, you get back on the right track. American Nana, being fair, well balanced, and being able to hear everything out is a must. You can't shut down when you disagree. It's what sets us apart from being a Democrat. Amen. Well put, American Nana. I think that's exactly right. And again, I understand how people are very, we kind of feel this, right? I get it. It can make us angry. It can bring out an emotion that we just don't like to kind of feel, to be angry about. And listen, I would encourage all of us just to take a deep breath. And I definitely wouldn't be losing any sleep about it. We're just having a calm intellectual discussion about what's going on. Ultimately, you have to make up your own mind about what's going on. Soon, this case will resolve itself one way or the other, and we'll be on to another subject. But at all times, we must follow the Constitution. At all times, we must follow the rule of law. I don't care who's in power, who's in the White House. We all must be protected by these same rights. We know in our mind what kind of person this Garcia likely is, but we cannot allow that to interfere with our better judgment. And I think that when we all think about that with a clear mind, or as I call it, the free mind, if you will, I think that's what is going to help each and every one of us out one way or the other. So I appreciate everybody tuning in today. I'm going to be making some more videos pertaining to Letitia James. She is really in deep trouble. The former mayor of Baltimore went down for similar crimes like this, as did the former, the Maryland state attorney. Let me see what her name was. Yeah, this Kathleen Pugh. She was a Maryland state senator. She was a member of the Democratic Party, 50th mayor of Boston. She went down after criticizing Donald Trump. This is back during his first administration. She was a major detractor of his. And then you have not just her, but you also had this other lady by the name of Marilyn Mosby. And her exact title, she was the 25th state attorney of Baltimore. She also was found guilty, and she had basically some type of prison time or some type of sentence. She was definitely found guilty of felonies. She was a little bit smarter than most. One of these ladies actually served 3 years in jail. The other one was real smart. The day after she was indicted, she had her attorneys going down, making a deal quickly. And that's a very smart way of handling things, depending on exactly what the crime is. Plus, you have sweet AG Letitia James. Guess who she just hired as her lawyer? A guy by the name of Abby Lowell. Abby Lowell, if I'm saying his name right. He was the attorney for President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and his criminal issues that he was dealing with. In addition to that, this same attorney has defended Bob Menendez, which, of course, his outcome was not that favorable. John Edwards, Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, Hunter Biden, Jim Wright, Dan Rynski, Charles Keaton. Remember him a long time ago? One of the Keaton, was that the Keaton 7? You have to be a little bit older to remember that case. Joseph McDade, Gary Condit. Remember him, that representative out of California, and that Chandra Levy case. So this guy has a long history of defending people in the mainstream. And Letitia James knows. She knows, ladies and gentlemen, she is in deep trouble over this. And the irony cannot be overstated, how she hammered Donald Trump for all these crimes, alleged crimes, I should say, these property record fiascos, or whatever you want to call it. And then she gets caught up. She gets caught up for essentially the same thing. It's just so rich. You almost can't stop smiling about it. And she's the same woman, if you remember, she ran for her office talking about how she's going to get Trump, that no one's above the law. Here's a statement from Letitia. When powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of hardworking people. Everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank to get a mortgage. And if they did, our government would throw the book at them. There simply cannot be different rules for different people. That's Letitia James, right? I just think that the hypocrisy is just unbelievable. And she would even send quotes out on Valentine's Day. Roses are red, violets are blue. No one is above the law, even when you think the rules don't apply to you. Happy Valentine's Day. She just made a sport out of hammering President Donald Trump, and she enjoyed it. Now she's going to get a sweet taste of it herself. And I can't wait for her to be indicted, which sounds terrible, but as I've explained many times, it is so necessary. American Anna, you're exactly right. Her big bum is going to jail. I can almost guarantee you she is going to be in jail. Not a doubt in my mind. The indictment is not really a question. It's a foregone conclusion. It's just a matter of dotting the I's, crossing the T. I'll be having some videos pertaining to Letitia James, Lord willing, coming out very, very soon. If not today, definitely tomorrow. There's a lot of facts here to talk about. I'm very excited about this particular subject, and I have no doubt we're going to be talking about Fani Willis, Nathan Wade. There is a little bit of breaking news on Fani Willis that I'll be talking about very, very soon. I know that her and Nathan Wade cannot be very happy together right now, even though, surprise, surprise, they've been seen at the airport together, basically traveling together. And remember, they told the court under oath, under penalty of perjury, that they effectively broke up a long time ago and they're done with each other and been done with each other for quite some time. So eventually all these lies are going to catch up with them, right? That's the way I look at it. So, all right. I appreciate everybody joining me today. It's always a pleasure to give me some time to talk with each and every one of you. I realize that sometimes we may talk about something that you don't necessarily share my view with, and that's okay. That's what my channel is all about, is exchanging ideas, putting a stop to indoctrination. I want to make sure you have the facts, whatever the facts are, even if you don't like the facts. That way you can make your own decisions in life, make your own choices in life. And the idea is, as a result, live your best life possible, not getting caught up in some type of police investigation that you shouldn't be part of. And I'm all about, like when it comes to police and stuff, why should you or your children pay a higher penalty for a crime that you may or may not have committed, and yet the sons and daughters of prosecutors and judges and police officers teach their children certain things that's just a matter of common practice in their homes. And if they have the misfortune of suffering and committing a crime, intentionally or accidentally, you know what I'm saying? It's just we have these two different sides of justice, and these are the kind of things I love talking about. And just like today, sometimes it's not always exactly what we want to hear. It may not be the way we like to think about something, but the facts are the facts. And ultimately, I encourage everybody to make their own choices, their own minds up one way or the other. I want to say hello to the folks over here on YouTube that joined me today. We have about 9 viewers on X right now and our friend on Twitch. Thank y'all all for being here. Make sure, if you haven't done so, hit the thumbs up button. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so you are made aware whenever I have a video come out. That way you are alerted right away. Thanks for everybody that participated in the conversation. American Anna, P. Hackerman, thank you for being here. Julianne, thank you for being here. Hope you're still listening in. I think Teresa is American Anna. Thank you for being here. Everybody, thanks again. If I've skipped you, my apologies, but Lord willing, I'll be seeing you all again very soon. I always say keep that mind free. Never give up. Until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.